All right, I think I know everybody. My name's Pat Jennings. I'm with the Murrieta Valley Historical Society. So today we're doing a little then and now. So some of it will be a little interactive. Fortunately, some of the real old timers are not here. Call them that. So mainly be showing a picture of what something looked like and what it looks like now. So we'll start off. Murrieta, this is Murrieta, about, what did you say, Jeffrey, about 1886 or 7?
About 1887, yeah.
So, not much here. This was the Murrieta's first one-room schoolhouse. There's the famous Fountain House. And the way down here is the Hutchinson House, which is still in existence down on Washington. So you have to go down there to check it out. One of the things you'll notice, the only trees in this photo are along Murrieta Creek right here. So it was a pretty barren piece of land. The reason for that was there was, of course, you know, native animals, antelope. There was a herd of antelope supposed here. But the main reason, it was grazing land. First under the auspice of Mission San Luis Rey, who controlled all the valley here. And they grazed it, sheep, horses, cattle, and stuff like that. San Luis Rey controlled the valley from up around Lake Elsinore all the way down to the San Luis Rey River, inland, Paula, all the way to Cebolla. Later on, you know, as the Spanish and the Mexican land grants, it was all grazing land, and when Juan Murrieta and his partners sold it to the development company and the railroad came through, it still looked like this. Today, you look at what it looks like now. When I take the kids on a tour, the third grade kids, I'll take them down, and the first thing I'll show them is a picture of Murrieta, you know, back in the early, mid-1880s, and say, look, there's no trees here. So every tree you see here in this valley has shown up since then. So everybody's seen this view before. This is, you guys know where this is? It's beautiful downtown Murrieta, about 1917.
And they closed it down for the market that night.
Yeah. So on the left's AK Small Store, which is now Vista Donuts. And so basically you're at Washington and Juniper Street looking north. So in the distance, Murrieta Methodist Church, you can't see Lakeman's there, AK Small House and AK Small Store.
And the bakery.
Bueller's Bakery right there, huh?
Yep. And the garage right there on the right is now a vacant lot.
And there it is today. So the AK Small still there, the store, of course Ray's Cafe, you couldn't see in that picture back then, was the Lakeman's Lunch House, and the vacant lot where it is. If you look down the street, of course, the Methodist Church is no longer with us. This was a picture taken just a couple days ago. Favorite picture, April 1948, good old Murrieta Fire Department. The fire department, as most of you know, formed in 1947 as an all-volunteer department. The first year they were stationed out of the Murrieta Machine Shop over on C Street in Washington. During that first year they built a fire station. So how they put it, with conscripted labor and donations, they put this little firehouse together. And this picture taken in April 1948 was the dedication of the fire station and the department's first barbecue. So the barbecue was in 1948. The department just celebrated its 75th anniversary last April. So this year is technically 76 years for the fire department. Now a bit of trivia for everybody. The department formed in 47. First barbecue was in 48. But in 1997, for the department's 50th, the fire chief at that time made the two match. So technically the barbecue always runs 1 year behind the department's anniversary. So Raymond Thompson there, the founding fire chief, their first fire truck, I think that's Coy Burnett, don't know who the rest of them are off the top of my head. The Murrieta Volunteer Fire Department sign, we've been trying to get it from the Garrison family. Victor Garrison was the fire chief at the time. He donated this piece of property to the fire department to build their fire station on. And then later on, when they built their new fire station, they deeded it back So the Garrison family still owns it. They still have that sign, and I've been trying for years to get it because Annette and Robert's dad painted that sign. It's on the back of a Michelin porcelain tire sign. This is it today. It still sits down there on C Street. There's still the plaque on the wall. The Garrison family, I understand, uses it for storage.
Just out of curiosity, the original, how did they notify all the firefighters to come to the station?
For the first year, they rang the bell in the Methodist church, and then later on, if you go back to this one, had this big siren on the tower. And so they'd light that siren up, and you could pretty much hear it all over town. Back then, there was no 911, so you would call the local number. You'd call Ray Thompson, who was the fire chief's house. It rang at his house in his workshop, or the Murrieta machine shop. It rang at the machine shop, and it rang at Vic Garrison's house. Or, you can see it in this picture, barely right there, it says fire. There was a button, so if not, you could drive down there, you'd push the button, the siren would spool up, and the front doors would open, and you'd write the name down on the location to call on the chalkboard.
Yeah, I read recently this week, there was a news blip in the column that stated they told the community, they said, please let the phone ring at least 11 times. We will get to the phone.
Yeah. So you'd have to climb off under the truck, or you have to, whatever you were doing, right? So that's what it looks like currently. So again, way back, most of these older photos are E.L. Kern photos. The Murrieta Depot, the train tracks, and then the Fountain House, all of which are no longer with us, unfortunately. Fountain House burned down in 1936, Depot not too long after when they pulled the train tracks up. They sold the depot to a couple local families, and they tore it down and reutilized the lumber. But today, not much there. If you're interested in the history of that area, contact Jeffrey here. He does a Murrieta 1885 tour of this area that talks about everything that went on down there and where it was located. So this was where the Fountain House was, the depot here, and the photo you couldn't see the man's house here. Over here, the only thing left of the Fountain House is the fountain. There's a concrete ring that was the fountain for the Fountain House.
So what year did they stop using the rails?
About 1935.
Okay.
March 1935, last
So I
year.
give you a date, it's usually a round number because I either have to look at my crib notes or I'll swag it. There's plenty of historical books out there that you can look at if you really got to know what date it is. Back to downtown, this is a Lakeman lunchroom. What was a Lakeman lunchroom? This one about 1909, 1910. Started out ice cream lunchroom. You can see his windmill in the back and all that stuff. It was on the main drag there, even though Washington Avenue wasn't quite the main street. B Street was, because it went down to the depot and the hotel. So he was, later on, it became, the main thoroughfare after 1935, and then 395 came through and it became kind of a stop on the way wherever you're trying to get to go. A little bit later, after Lakeman, it was the Eiler family purchased it. This is a Sykes family photo. This is Henry's place. Most of you familiar with downtown know what Ray's Cafe looks like. This is what it looked like. This one was probably, sometime in the 40s. This we figured out when we were working down there was probably the bathroom. And of course some other stuff there, water tank and stuff that was pretty typical of the places.
That, the piece that you just, right there, it basically looks like it was the ice cream shop in that they,
Oh, really?
they moved it back and then they built the addition here. But it has the same roof line. If you go back to the ice cream shop, you'll see they have the same roof line.
Oh, yeah.
And all they did was they pushed it back and they,
Probably like it didn't fall apart when they pushed it back. So Henry's Place, and then a little later, this is circa 1940s, we moved up in town. This was the only payphone in town at the time, unless you could talk Burnham's store into using it.
And it's where the Greyhound bus stopped.
And right there was where you picked up the bus to go to Elsinore High School.
Yeah.
We always sat there in the morning and it always smelled like sour beer. And of course you can see the roof line of the Lakeman house in the background, and then
Murrieta Garage.
the Murrieta Garage at that time was owned by probably
And the palm trees.
in the palm trees. Circa 1987, this is what Ray's Cafe looked like after the Bazanza family bought it in 1950. This is about 1987. A couple of locals hanging out there waiting, because it's closed, waiting for it to open. This is a Bazanza family photo. And of course, just the other day, compliments to Amy, we had some famous people on the, on the building.
No, I pasted them up.
Oh.
Not painted them. Just a lot of pasting.
So, that's pretty much where we're at with Ray's Cafe right now. Just on the corner of Juniper, this is the Lakeman House Ray's Cafe. This was the Murrieta Garage. In this picture, Doc Sturgis, who was the doc in town, this was about 1917. And I think this was James Witcher. He actually owned the garage. And as we cleaned out Ray's Cafe over all those years, we found a lot of Witcher family history. So somehow they were closely tied to the Lakemans and the Eilers. And so they,
Ernest Lakeman's wife had like 3 different marriages, and the Witcher
was one of them.
one, yeah. Yeah, he was Ernest Lakeman's stepson,
Hmm.
and this was known as the Lakeman Corner. And
Lakeman Corner.
And he
Stop calling it
requested,
that now.
he requested that property to open. It was about 1913, and it's considered one of the first service stations in Murrieta.
Huh.
Later on, Marvin Kern owned it. Before that, Eldon Knott, and it was the A.K. Small and Sons service station.
Thompson.
This is about, what do I got here? About 1950. Marvin, besides being Murrieta's second fire chief and a founding member, was a mechanic, ran a couple different service stations. This one, he had one on the corner of Ivy and Jefferson. And then later years, after he got out of the service station business, he actually worked out of the old firehouse as his garage. And later on, he was a bus driver and ended up being Murrieta's second fire chief. Anyway, it's about 1950.
Wow.
This is what it looks like today. It's the hangout for the Murrieta Marketplace. Right now, what is this? Still got water in it, Connie?
Yeah, there's, and you see the little green thing there, those are a couple of alligators. The little gray ones were sharks.
There's vegetation to fill that in, so we don't have that problem.
Did it come up from the sewer?
So, another Murrieta view. This is compliments of, I think, Robert. Did you take this picture?
I don't think so.
Your mom, maybe.
Mom, maybe mom.
Mom did.
So this is Ivy looking from a hill just down from Murrieta Cemetery. Kind of a blurry photo. Hogbacks in the background, Mount San Jacinto.
Wow.
Probably early to mid 1960s. This is it today. Progress has
Paved it.
paved and put a bridge in, right?
Oh, let's see.
And a light pole. Even see, they got light poles. We don't even have them in my neighborhood because we don't pay the bond. So, guys, anybody recognize this building?
That's the winery.
That's the winery building. No, not a lot of people knew Murrieta had a winery. So this was located out off Murrieta Hot Springs Road. When was the winery? It was built about 1933.
Yeah, it was right after Prohibition ended. They, the Santa Fe Distillery and Brewery Company came in and set up shop, thinking that they would get all the crops from Southwest Riverside County to supply them. But they were in operation probably just a couple of years before they had to fold up.
Yeah, a couple of years, what they found was that they did plant some vines, but every time they drove a well, they hit hot water. So that area is very minerally active. So what I got from Charlie Yoder, whose dad later bought this property, they had to hunt around and find a freshwater well. And they found later on when they were farming that land that if they blended the water with fresh water, that they could grow some good crops. But when they tried to irrigate their grapes with mineral water, it didn't work very well. Across the road from this is what it looks like today. This is taken from the Sizzler on Murrieta Hot Springs in the 215 freeway, 250. And so Sam's Club, Wendy's, the Hat, all those were right there. In this same shopping center, a little about the middle of that shopping center, there's actually a mineral hot springs well. And the people that own the shopping center use it to irrigate their landscape.
When did the winery disappear?
Burned down, when was that? Anybody remember off the top of their head? 1970 sometime?
Oh, we're still in the 70s.
Yeah, it wasn't a winery then.
Oh,
The family that owned it, the Yoder family, they used it to store equipment, and Shell family was living out there, and another.
They still have-
Darlene Ramirez,
Yeah.
she was living there.
Yeah,
Because when I played with Sabrina out there, with the Shell family, they still have the vats and everything.
Yeah.
You know, inside the barn
Really?
and stuff, yeah.
Wow.
and, yeah. This is, I've been trying for years to straighten this picture up and haven't had much luck. But yeah, there was a residence in one side of it, I believe it was over here, right, Ned?
Mhm.
And so, the MJ Yoder Family Enterprise used it as a workshop and storage too.
I miss
An
that.
iconic barn, this is Cliff Thompson's barn. I don't know when it was built, I've not been able to find that out. Sat on the corner of Ivy and Jefferson.
I miss
So-
it.
Advertised to Temecula Hot Springs, which was about a mile this side of Gunther's Murrieta Hot Springs. And then, of course, in Reno, it's Harold's Club. So I don't know how long that was on there. But that's what's there today, the strip center. Probably went down, what, mid-1980s. Honeycutt Farms, for those of you that are aficionados of Honeycutt Farm, actually got their start in the center of this building.
Yeah,
Until
remember
they
that.
moved over across the freeway. Mom and Pa's place was supposedly the kids' hangout, chili and tamales, corner of Ivy and Jefferson. This particular photo, about 1925, 1926, showing Mom and Pop. They ran a service station and a kind of a diner, I guess you'd call it. A few years ago, this is what it looks like. Over the years, it was a bunch of different things. Marvin Kern's station would have sat to the left through several owners. It was King's Cafe for many years. Annette's mom worked there for many years. Saw John Wayne there and a bunch of famous people heading to Gunther's Murrieta Hot Springs because back then, of course, freeways were in, so they came down I-295. Later on, it was Murray's. It was the hangout for all the cowboys and cowgirls. They ran kind of a convenience liquor hangout store there. And so that was the hot hangout for all the cowboys and cowgirls.
Yeah.
And it had the second payphone in Murrieta. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Today, just a week or so ago, this is what it looks like. It is, the building was torn down. It is scheduled for, what is it, affordable housing, high density housing, apartments?
300 apartments.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it 300? I thought it was.
Senior apartments.
Too many.
So when they get them built, I'll take another picture. The good old Murrieta grain elevator, what this picture, about this one, this particular picture was taken in 1958. A bunch of local guys, I don't know if they're loading or unloading out of there. A little bit of fallacy about the grain elevator, everybody nowadays calls it the mill. Well, it was never really a mill per se where they processed and mixed grain. You know, if they mixed grain, they poured it out on the ground and shoveled it around. It was mainly a storage facility. This whole thing was designed to store and transfer grain. 1917, 18, when it was built, there was a shortage of grain sacks, so in good Murrieta fashion, everybody got together, just like they did the fire department later on, and did something about it and built the grain elevator. Formed a co-op and was in operation probably till the late 80s, early 90s through a bunch of different owners. Today, that's all that's left. A couple fires later, and that's what you have, just a concrete tower. And some metal buildings owned by the city of Murrieta. Last time we heard they were planning on putting a wrap on it to purdy it up, but they were gonna put a wrap of the elevator on it. So I don't know what that meant, but we'll have to wait and see. Luckily, the last fire burned the stairwell out that went out, so that kept the kids from falling in it. Oh yeah, we always go up there and have all kinds of fun. So there was one injury there in the early 1980s. A kid fell on the other side, fell down from the top into one of the bins. We had a fire department rescued him. He survived the fall. Luckily, nobody's ever been killed there. So if you hear rumors about this particular building being haunted, it's not, that we know of. A couple rumors of why people might think it's haunted. One, it was a hangout in the 1980s for the meth kids.
Oh.
So maybe that had something to do with it, or over the years, there's been a couple of big white barn owls that live up there. So they'd fly in and out of there, and so people always thought they saw a little girl dressed in a white dress. But anyway, like I said, as far as I know, nobody's ever been killed there, so I don't know why it'd be haunted, unless the little girl liked it and decided to move in for the view. So who knows this one? Thelma's Iris Garden.
Iris Garden, I remember that.
Jefferson, right, just south of Ivy Street, the big old industrial building there. Thelma sold irises. She was there for years, and this is what it looks like today. Progress in Murrieta.
So sad.
I don't know why that thing shrinks, but how many guys went to the windmill or Ruth's back in the day? It was the local hangout after King's Cafe turned into Murray's. So Ruth, who worked at King's, she was the cook in the park store, she rented it. She built this little diner basically, and it was the hangout. If the photo was bigger, you could see the hitching rail out in front of it that people got tired of hanging out at Murray's, would come down to the windmill to have lunch or dinner. Open 7 days a week. It was the place to be. Good food.
That's where the Cityhood Drive began.
Yeah, that's the donut shop.
Murrieta Cityhood started here.
So this is what it looks like today. Same location, was torn down, and we got a U-Haul dealer there.
When did that go down?
You know, I'm not sure.
It's after I came out, because I used to have lunch with Carl down there, Lindeman's. We'd go down
Oh,
there.
Carl Lindman.
Yeah, we'd go down and have lunch every once in a while.
I don't know exactly.
I don't remember.
Like I said, I told people if I knew I was going to be in history at this age of my life, I'd pay more attention when I was growing up.
I know it was there in the 70s,
Yeah.
late 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the mid-80s. So another tale of woe. This is Alice Lowe's picture. Alice took a lot of pictures like Robert did back in the day. Pretty common occurrence back in the days. This is Ivy Street at Murrieta Creek. Back then it was what they call a low water Arizona crossing. And I did many water rescues here when I was in the fire department because people didn't believe the road was closed for a reason. So they would drive out and their car would get stuck in the water and we'd have to pull them out. The people, not the cars, we always left the cars. We weren't in the towing business. So anyway, this is what we got today. So now nobody gets stuck in. The only one left is at Calamia in Murrieta Creek. And in the early 90s, after the city incorporated, we were having so much trouble. The fire department got together with the city and we gated all these. We had gates put up so people wouldn't cross them. But then they built a bridge. Okay, what does that look like? Horse ranch, right?
Yeah.
Right there.
So over the years, let's see, let me read my notes. The Rail family lived here early on. There was a Hereford cattle ranch there. Later on, it was Thoroughbred Paradise, racehorses, and then Fox Hollow a little bit later after that. Let me get that out of the way. So, anybody know where this is now?
Absolutely.
She does. Give you a hint, Murrieta Elementary School, parking lot, today, Town Square Park. Yep.
Okay.
So here's Murrieta Elementary, who you can see right here back then. This was the parking lot, there was the bell. I could sit in class when I was a kid, you could look at, if you sat on the building over here, you could watch the horses run on the track. And today it is Town Square Park, so here's Murrieta Elementary. So now City Hall, Police Department, the Senior Center, the library, and now Murrieta Elementary.
One of my first jobs, and I can't remember if it was Thoroughbred Paradise or Fox Hollow. Dick Chu was the manager. And one of my first jobs was working over there in the office and then taking people out to see their horses and feed them sugar. And I was probably a freshman.
You were in horse heaven.
Yeah.
The earliest part of that history of that property was, I think it was German immigrants settled there and created like a little community, had a church, and had actually, when people died, they actually buried them in the churchyard. And then when the Murrieta Cemetery was built, the bodies were reinterred there. But,
Yeah, because when the Rails had it, didn't they had orchards and they had quite a bit of stuff.
well, the Rails actually rented property, and it was along the Calmia side over here, where that houses used to be. And there used to be a watermelon patch there as well.
And so, progress.
Yeah.
Another E. Hale Kern photo. Back in the early days of Murrieta, in the 1880s and 90s, they had a tradition called the May Day picnic. So on May Day, they would have a community picnic. Most of the time, it was held up on at the Santa Rosa Ranch headquarters. Parker Deer was the owner then. They sometimes called it the Parker or the Deer family or community event. But then sometimes they held us down in the valley here. This picture was taken in Colt Canyon. E. Hale Kern photo cites it about 1896. So this was during the May Day
Down.
thing, and there's up in the canyon up there, there's a rock, and they used it as a natural bandstand. And so they would park the band up there and they would play while people had their party. I'd looked for this rock for years because I knew it was up in Colt Canyon somewhere, and I had to get this guy right here from Canyon Lake to show me where it was. I felt really bad, but I was happy to know where it was. So this is it today, still up in Colt Canyon, kind of an obscure location. Fortunately, when the Tanaha fire burned through there in 2017, it missed this rock. And the reason I'm glad it missed it is there are historic inscriptions on this rock. Two sides, a set of initials on the other side of the rock, there's a set of initials. You can see very vaguely here, 1809. And I'd always wondered I could never pull off the last number, so I figured, based on the E. Hale Kern photo, it's 1896. There's an enhanced version of it, so you can see the initials. The band, as far as we know, shown in the first picture of this rock, is unknown. Even Hale Kern couldn't come up with the name of the people that were in the band. The Thompson family locally had a band. There might have been some of their members. Good old Murrieta Elementary. Murrieta's technically third school because the first school was.
Aren't you gonna ask how many of us went there?
Stick your hand up if you went to Murrieta. Yeah, I know who went there.
Got in trouble.
Sure you did. So it was built about 1920 and was in use until 1956. The previous school was the one room we saw in the first picture over on Calamia and Second. Technically, the first school was in a barn over at the rail place over where Mission Hills Mobile Home Park is. So they used it was Net's mom went there, my dad went there, a lot of the family went there. We have an extensive photo collection of local kids that went to this particular school. Was condemned about 1956. The kids went. Calvin Sykes was in the other day, remembers they would go to school at Shearer Hall, which was attached to Murrieta Methodist Church, but they would go up to the school for lunch. On lunch, so they get to go on a road trip. Unfortunately today, that's all that's left. Fire in the early 1980s. It was owned by an eccentric kind of guy, a guy named Ray Van Zale, who was a horrible hoarder. The place was just filled to the brim with stuff, and when it burned for 3 days before it finally fell down. This is on a piece of property that whole block there pretty much owned by the city of Murrieta. It's scheduled to be what they call Pioneer Park. The idea is they want to eventually demo this because you have to realize it's been through a severe fire and it was condemned in 1956, so there's nothing worth salvaging there. That they're going to build a new building on the same place, on the same footprint. And supposedly half of it's going to be for a museum. It's never been funded, and I'm not looking forward for it in my lifetime. So they built a new school, Murrieta Elementary, started in the fall of 1958. Who remembers this place? Harry Winters was the town realtor. I think Annette's mom took this picture a few years back, I don't remember. So it sat there on Washington for many years. We almost bought it years ago, we almost bought it for ice cream. Should have done that before the city of Murrieta incorporated. That's it today.
Wow.
I'm not even sure if it's the same building, but it's in the same place. It's been numerous things. Last I heard, it's supposed to be a brewery, but nothing ever seems to get together. There was a barber shop in there.
Yeah.
And so now, I don't know, who knows?
He's getting closer to opening that as
Yeah?
brewery. Yeah.
Same as the barbecue guys, right? Been going for like 5 years.
I can't remember, I'm not sure of his name, but anyway, he's getting closer.
Yeah, it has a full inside.
Well, not the little, the brewery's gonna be
Okay.
on, in the building.
So when you go by downtown, you look at these old looking buildings back there, they're actually new. So they're built to look old. 'Cause there was nothing on that lot. Only thing left, I think that telephone pole's still back there. Yeah, there is.
The roof that they have on the new building there on the left actually came from a historic building. And so that's about the only historic piece on that building.
They come out of.
What
Old
building?
Down in Temecula.
They claimed it came from the Deer Sawyer house. But I don't know, they said they found it on the ground next to some old house and brought it in, but
So it's really, nobody can identify it.
no.
All right. Okay, older people in town recognize that. That is Murrieta's second fire station. So I showed you earlier, the first fire station, they utilized that station from 1948 to 1965. During that year, they floated a bond and built a new fire station. Fortunately, there was a fire commissioner, because it was a special district, not a city or anything at that time. Albert Edmonds had donated a big chunk of that land to the fire district, and he passed away. So they had some free land, so they had some equity, and they floated a bond, and they built this new fire station. 1966, it was dedicated, 2 bays, a little bit of an office, a little day room in the back. That's all there was, because there was no full-time staff. The old part of the station was built specifically designed to hold the barbecue. So you go in the front door, and then there was a big cutout into the kitchen. You go in the front door, you turn right, a couple restrooms, go around a Disney-style pipe, and go down and get your meal, and then you could go into the apparatus bay to have your lunch. Siren there again, they used the siren to notify volunteers up until about 1986, 1987. Then everybody started complaining about it, but by then we had tone pagers that would tone you out, so you didn't need the siren. They replaced the siren in the early 80s with even a bigger one that you could hear from Temecula to Elsinore. On a clear night, you could hear it all over the valley. Today, right across the street from us. So original 2 bays and the original part of the station, now there's 2 other big bays. The station was lengthened in the back. The other 2 bays all the way in the back, designed the bay on, the new part of the bay here, designed to take a 100-foot aerial ladder, which the department's now trying to buy. To the right, the back of the station was remodeled, crew quarters were added. Then, of course, if you look across the street from the office building, this was updated twice in about 1988, 1989. The station here was all remodeled and built up. Training rooms built in the back, administrative wing, and then the 2-story building about 2005, 2006. So the site's been updated at least 3 times. Lover's Lane, who knows where Lover's Lane is in Murrieta? You guys didn't even know Murrieta had a Lover's Lane, did you? Nobody knows why it's called Lover's Lane.
Is that Juniper? No, the tree, Juniper trees, no?
So, interesting, that's Beeler's Bakery. So, look familiar now? B Street, from Washington looking toward Murrieta Elm. So look, see those cypresses?
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
still there. This one was about, again, I think the E. Hale Kern photo, about 1970. There are several 1917 photos. So the professional photographer must have came through town that week and took a bunch of pictures. But Hale Kern collected them all, and we have them today. So there's Lover's Lane today.
Huh.
Now, this is a Robert Bose picture. Sometime in the mid-1960s, Robert climbed to the top of Miller Mountain and took a bunch of pictures. So this is Ivy, and Murrieta Creek, and this is the township of Murrieta in the mid-1960s. This was Murrieta Stud Ranch, Wynn's Place, right down about there is the Sotelo Homestead.
And Olive Hills.
And if you look real close, you can see where the Boses lived, right there. So about 1965, this here is Olive Hill Estate, the big high-end houses up there with the olive trees. So there is some olive trees left. What was it, Chicken Ranch, Turkey Ranch?
Chicken Ranch, Mr. Wright.
Mr. Wright.
So are we looking east?
Looking east, this is the mountains to the west. Miller Mountain right above Murrieta Cemetery. The hogbacks out here, the day was a little cloudy, the San Jacinto Mountains over here. So, anyway.
And the
Not San
colony
Jacinto.
would have been out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's that?
The colony.
Colony would have been out over here.
Blackmore's Ranch.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so it runs out here, and like I said, Murrieta Creek, the freeways would have cut out that way.
Where the tree line is in the back, that would be the former Murrieta eucalyptus plantation.
Out here, where the.
And that's where Las Brisas homes are.
Yeah. Today,
Wow.
so where the olive grove was, I hiked up to the top. a lot of work for an old man. All uphill both ways. So anyway, there's Ivy Street, pretty much another hazy day. We have a cemetery now. You couldn't really see it. It was down in here. Wasn't much there. But yeah, so there's Ivy, Murrieta Creek, where we all live down here. Colony up in here.
Wow.
Yeah, big change. Horses were big in Murrieta. Don't even say it,
I've
Connie.
been in there before. Before it was alcohol.
So this was the Younger Brothers Western store, sometime in the 1960s. It was there into the, what, early, mid-70s,
Mhm.
I believe.
I remember going in there.
Yeah, so if you like the smell of leather and you needed a good set of Western duds, this was the place to go. Like horses were the big thing from early 1950s through the late 1970s. Now, Joni's Cantina. Nobody knows who Joni is, but it's Joni's Cantina.
Joni
I was
owned it
either over.
before Annie did.
Yeah, whoever Joni was.
She lived up in
You
Fallbrook.
knew Joni?
Sure.
Yeah.
And
Well, good.
she ended up going out living at the Burrell place.
Ah, so she was friends with Annie.
Yeah, well, and Annie worked for her too.
Ah,
Yeah.
well,
See, now we learned something.
Yeah, Annie was bartender.
Joni passed away a couple of years ago.
So now it's called, was bought by the Belching Beaver. They had great plans for it that immediately ran up against the city, and so this was taken the last week, so the Belching Beaver hasn't gotten it for yet. Ask Connie about working with the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a recent photo that Jeffrey acquired through the Gibbons family. Of course, the Murrieta Methodist Church is pretty obvious there. The Gibbons family owned this, what, in the 1934 to 43 about. Later on, the Dunn family owned it, and they actually lived on the site. It was a gas station and basically an early 7-Eleven.
Yeah, the Dunhams rented it.
Yeah.
And then in the late 1950s, the Crow family lived there, and they set up.
Oh, that, okay.
And they set up Mustangville.
Yes,
Mustangville.
which I was a member of, on my horse.
And you have pictures of it.
And yes, there's pictures of that.
And then the Crows left, and then Clifford Holliday took over the property from the country market all the way to this property, and he owned it.
So for those of you not familiar with it, this is what it looks like today. So currently the Wines restaurant sits about where the Gibbons service station did, corner right here in Murrieta Country Market, and the Murrieta Methodist Church sat about there, burned down in 1963. Well, there's the parsonage, now a mortuary.
It's the
So it changed quite a bit. Rather obscure photo. This was Chester Mason's ranch. It was out on off of Los Alamos Road. He raised polled Herefords and Longhorns. So I took this picture for this reason. This is early 1970s, I think we were told. Of course, you know, this is Murrieta out here. This is today. So, for a little perspective, this is the Los Alamos Hills Sports Park out on Los Alamos Road. The buildings are all still there. A community services department for the city of Murrieta uses it for their offices. Intern-wise, Juan Yu, the big Chinese development fellow, lived there for a long time. But quite a change from then to now.
Yep, and you can see the eucalyptus plantation in the previous photo,
Yeah,
right there. And then when you click it, you'll see the tree line is still there, which is part of the Las Brisas fitness trail now.
yeah. It's over in your neck of the woods, huh?
Mhm. Sort of
Main Drag Murrieta, again, about a 1917 photo. You guys know where this is?
B Street.
Buildings still.
So-
It's gonna be B
Washington Avenue
and B.
and B Street looking west toward the mountains. This is the tar water store, now known as Murrieta Country Market. The old tar water store sat back there. Of course, all this is gone. Big eucalyptus grove when I was a kid. All the turkey buzzards in the valley would come and roost there at night. That's all gone, thank goodness. That's what it looks like today. So some of the houses may or may not be part of the original, but of course, we still got the Murrieta Country Market.
And you had the sign of the inland highway as well in front of the store.
Yeah.
You also notice that the front of the tar water building faced B Street, which B Street was your main street. And in the new photo, we know now that the front is now facing Washington because traffic changed from the railroad to the highway. And that triangle sign right there is the inland highway sign.
Right there. Today, they got a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. On the Hamilton house, Jack Hamilton built this house. When did he build the house? About 1920. He moved, built the house about 1925. They moved to Murrieta about 1970. Master carpenter. He built this house. He had a big workshop in the back. A well-known carpenter. He built the 1940 Murrieta post office. That's now a yoga place.
Yeah.
And he also did a lot of work out at the hot springs. He worked at the hot spring. So you can look at the later photos, you can see some of this kind of rock work made out of the Santa Rosa basalt that is pretty typical, a lot of the rock work out at the hot spring.
Wow.
If you ever walk by the house, there's a gravestone here, it says Jack Hamilton. Jack Hamilton's not buried there. He was buried in Elsinore when his wife passed away. They put a double headstone in, the family didn't want to get rid of the headstone, so they hauled it up here and they put it in front yard. It's a good story to tell the kids when you take them on the downtown tour. No, nobody's buried here, sorry. So we're back to the tar water store. So like Jeffrey was saying, the inland sign's over here, it says hotel. This was the second tar water store. This one was built about 1916, 1917. The old tar water store was down there.
1912, I think. 1912, 1913, wasn't it?
I don't know, that's what E.L. Kern said.
But
City.
the hotel sign there is pointing to the Fountain House Hotel.
So if you look at portions of today's,
Pat, go back to that one real quick. Is this the blacksmith shop here?
could be,
Yeah, because everything I've seen about this property, where the wine ranch is today, they always say that the blacksmith shop was there,
could very well be.
but that looks like the blacksmith shop.
So the Murrieta Country Market and Tarwater, Tarwater built the store later on. Burnham owned it. Mel Miller was another owner later on, and then Kenny Lee and Warner Stewart owned it. I don't know who owns it now, but anyway. There we have it. Good old Murrieta Country Market.
And the tar water safe is still in the building.
Yeah.
They won't let me look at it.
Of course, this looks familiar to everybody. This is Murrieta's famous town hall. I think it's Alice Lowe's picture, probably 1960-ish, mid-60s. In the back, there was a garage, and then back and behind it was a 2-room cinder block restroom, because this was the town hall. So again, to read all about the Hunt House right here, because that's what we're sitting in right now, donated was the Town Hall Association, owned it for many years, and then the city of Murrieta owns it. This is it today. Flagpole's still there, and we use it for a museum.
And Alice Peachtree.
So, back to downtown, this is the infamous Lakeman House. So in this photo we have Mr. and Mrs. Lakeman and James Wetcher, and this is their grandson, I don't remember his name.
Elmer Luden.
What is it?
Elmer Luden.
Elmer Luden. So this was another early photo. Those of you been downtown lately, may it rest in peace, the Lakeman House.
Yeah, it's gone.
That's what it looks like today. Unfortunately, unlike the oldest house in Murrieta, this was the second oldest house in Murrieta. The family, once the Pazanzas took the property in 1950, they never really took care of the property. And so that's what happens when you don't take care of a house. Eventually, when we helped clean it up, we figured if we took everything out of the house would fall over. It listed quite badly, but it never did fall over.
No, hadn't happened. Big
It kind of took a lean to the south.
How late was it occupied? Somebody was living there.
They were living there until we, 2016,
2016.
2017.
Was it?
2017
Yeah.
is when we
We
cleaned
kicked
it
it
out,
out.
and Skip had been living, well, Skip and Muriel had moved to Hemet in an apartment, but Skip had been living there maybe the year before.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
It
we
was
found
still
lots of
fresh.
evidence of
Still
that.
fresh things there.
Yes.
So anyway, that's what it looks like now. Including the world's biggest the biggest raccoon I've ever seen. So anyway, there we have it. Up for sale.
There's our cemetery.
This is Laurel Cemetery. Yeah, well, as we're looking at Ivy at Laurel Cemetery, looking west. This is, I think, is your mom's photo, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Early 1960s, you can barely see the sign. This was when George Turk was the groundskeeper up there, and George liked lots of growth. Of course, you can look over here. There was, I think this was dirt still, even back up then. You know, there wasn't much up there. And so over the years, it's become a much nicer looking place. When Annette was on the cemetery board, her passion was to clean all of George's stuff up, so you could at least see the cemetery from the road.
When did they put the road in?
I don't remember.
I have pictures of it.
Who knows what this little place is?
Can you bring them?
Wow.
Should. That looks very familiar.
There's about a 1980 circa vintage photo, Alice Lowe's photo. This is the Women's Club next to the Murrieta Episcopalian Church. That's what it looked like back then. That building was built in about 1934 for a women's club. They were using one of the local Granger halls, and then they built their own building. They ran a library out of it. They did a lot of different things out of it. Later on, the church next door, the Episcopalian Church, bought it out from them.
Murrieta Union Church.
Yep. So today,
It's Faith.
Faith Coffee Shop.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
See it?
Yeah.
There's the fireplace,
Yeah.
and there it is right there.
Wow.
They just opened this building. They did a lot of renovation on it and everything. They even got rid of that peculiar smell that building had. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a bad smell, it was just different. It had a unique smell, and now it's gone. It smells like coffee. The Doolittle House, oldest house in Murrieta. This is kind of an undated photo. I don't really know when it was
I love that.
taken. It was the oldest house in Murrieta, 1885, built for the Doolittle family. This is a circa about late 1970s pencil drawing by Patricia Henderson, who owned the property at the time. And there it is today. So when you take care of a house, lasts a long time. It's been a bunch of different things, residences over the years. I know for a while it was an antique store, tattoo parlor, and they have a card reader in there one time.
When was it a tattoo parlor? I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Long time ago.
I don't remember that at all. I guess I wasn't into tattoos.
Didn't last long.
It didn't last
Community.
long. Not that long.
Leaving there either.
So anyway, Doolittle House, right down the street here on the left. Can't miss it. So we're gonna have a little quiz. This particular put together out of the Laguna Review, which is a local magazine from Mayhall Printing in Elsinore. This particular page comes out of the 1970 Murrieta Fire Department barbecue program. As you can see, there's pieces of Murrieta.
Yeah.
So, anybody recognize that building? Robert? Connie? Come on, guys.
My eyes are so bad I can't see.
So what you're looking at there, that is the north end of the AK Small building.
Oh, well, we don't know the north end. Come on.
This is the end of by the AK Small House, directly across, this is the end directly across from Ray's Cafe.
That was a sneaky one.
This is the other end of it. The windows are still there. Come on, guys, you know where that one is.
Is that the,
Well, maybe.
that's the,
Sorry, you already can't see it.
Can you get closer? That's the Murrieta Country Market, of course, Murrieta Methodist Church.
yeah, that I know.
Some of the local yokels, including somebody's parents probably, hanging out at the Murrieta Post Office
Probably
next to the
mine.
billboard. There's the post office. Of course, this one's an easy one.
Yeah.
Granary.
Warner Brothers.
That's the
Younger Brothers.
Yeah,
grocery
yeah.
store.
yep, the Warner Brothers, the Western store, Murrieta Grain Elevator. How about this one? Anybody know this one?
That looks,
It looks vaguely familiar.
yeah, it looks like where I used to live.
That's the section house
The section house?
on the corner of New Clay and Calamita. That's where the section house workers used to hang.
It's not
That's
it. What I was thinking.
been gone for a long time.
Down.
Here's another one for you. I'll run them through real quick. Fire station across the street here. Post office here.
Yeah,
Machine shop.
yeah.
How about that one?
Was that King's?
No, that's Murrieta Methodist Church.
What? How?
What?
That's
What?
not, that's not the church.
That's the new one that was
That's
built
the
by
older Methodist church.
Calamia and Adams.
Yep.
What, but that's
What?
what I went
Look
to.
closer,
That doesn't look right.
I was gonna say the windmill.
Okay.
Murrieta L
Yeah,
and Mission Hills Mobile Home Park.
okay.
This one even flummoxed us. We think, and then I think this is the entrance to El Rancho Murrieta up on Washington.
Oh, they did have a,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And then this one, the feed
Can't
store.
read it.
Isn't that where your feet
Could
start?
be when you open your first feed store, Connie,
Juniper.
with you and Joe.
Well,
It's
I
a Gagnon
can't
house.
read it. We opened our feed store in the garage.
Right.
And then it got moved to the tire, where the tire
And
shop is.
that's the Gagnon house.
Yeah, okay.
So that pretty much concludes
Bring back
it.
memory.
So
Yeah.
with that, I'll take any questions you have. And so when you're working downtown and you're doing things, somebody will come by and give you the wave and they'll use all their fingers. So that's good old, that's old Les Dunham.
I was gonna
We
say,
happened to be
I
driving by.
recognize the beard.
So I got the Dunham wave as we went by, so Les was saying goodbye. If you want me to run back to look at more pictures, let me know. If you got any questions, if I can't answer them,
Jeffrey can.
yeah.
I have one real quick question. Hot Springs, there was a secondary hot spring going east on Hot Springs Road. It was on the right-hand side.
That was the one, that's where the,
Make the hospital.
yeah, Temecula
It was
Hospital.
actually this side of Gunther's.
Yeah,
And where Warm Springs Creek crosses.
yeah.
Now Whitewood crosses right there. It was right to the right there.
Well, I always was thinking of it as near the winery place.
It wasn't that far up. Yeah,
Wasn't
and
that-
that used to
wasn't
hang
quite
out there
that
with
far.
the.
It used to be when I was growing up, it was called Murrieta Hot Springs West.
Oh,
It
okay.
had the tennis courts, it had a bar.
When did it close down? Because it was abandoned when I was,
Oh, yeah.
when I
The kids
first
used
came
to.
here.
Probably
Excuse me.
1978, because it was starting to go down, because my friends lived on the property.
Yeah,
And I remember it getting a little spooky,
Yeah.
bar closed, and it was kind of getting
yeah.
scary.
The house that they just renovated.
Anybody else got any questions?
I have a little correction.
on
A correction, I love correction.
Well, this, you said the school was, the old school was condemned in 56, but we still went there because I was the last 8th grade class coming out of the stage area was condemned.
Yeah.
So we were the first class to graduate off of the new elementary stage, but that was in 1958.
Yeah.
But we still went there all through the, you said it was condemned in 56.
That's what probably started the process.
The one portion of the building that was the most dangerous was
Was
the
the stage.
auditorium.
Yeah, and that's what was condemned.
And that was condemned. And so the lower grades were at the Methodist Church's Sher Hall, and the upper grades were still at the
Yes,
school.
I was in the.
And they were in only like one portion of the wing that was deemed,
Well, it was on, and it was on, looking at it, it was on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it was on the right
7th
side.
grade class.
yeah.
And then there was a little kitchen, and then straight in was the 5th and 6th, then 3rd and 4th, and 1st and 2nd.
Got one, Robert?
Yeah,
Well, I
But
have a
they
quick
basically
story.
split the
You were talking about
grades.
the grain elevator
Yeah.
and how they had to have barn owls up there. I remember once with Dudley Sykes, and I don't know who else, Calvin, whoever, we walked up, we got in, walked up the stairs, the wooden stairs, all the way to the top. And he opened up the hatch, and Dudley was the first guy to get up there. And as he jumped, he kind of crawled up, the barn owl took one look at him and right for him. He said, I can still remember the barn owl pecking at his head, wings flapping, and we were just cracking up. He was trying to fight the stupid barn owl off.
You can't let go of the ladder because you're
Yeah. One of those funny things in life, I remember.
That's what happens when you hang out with a psych boy.
It was very interesting to me.
Anybody else got anything, or you wanna see anything? We're gonna run back to the
Yeah.
pictures if you wanna see one in particular.
I'd like to comment the Laguna Review. That, the photographer was Ruby Zorro,
Right.
and I don't know, I think this is before her or after her time.
Well, 60, this one was a 1970 program.
Okay.
This one was a 1966 program.
Oh, she was around taking the pictures.
So that's why I've been trying to get back into the archives of what the Elkhorn Historical Society has, because they probably don't recognize any of these pictures. Remember that bunch you had, we pulled a bunch of Murrieta out of it. And so far, I've been having a luck getting them out of it.
Ruby Zorro.
Ruby's all right,
And she lived near our ranch, near Meadowbrook.
All right, anybody else? Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.